is working towards an effort started by the Chancellor's Office at the U of I, the Campus Community Compact to Accelerate Social Justice in our community. And within that, I also should say we're all volunteers here. None of us are professional. We're trying some technologies that are new to us here, so hopefully this will go smoothly. And in fact, it's not at the moment because there we go. Okay. The compact, this information I'm showing you now was put out last fall. Okay. I think somebody on the meeting maybe could mute their mic. Okay, that sounds better. Thank you. The compact I was just mentioning, the goals of the compact, I wanted to go over those briefly just so folks have an overview of the overarching effort here in the community. And I apologize for reading what's on the screen, but perhaps you can just read along with me. The goals are to convene community and university leaders to gather an understanding of the various anti-racism initiatives across the community that are currently in progress or planned, reflect upon previous initiatives attempted both within the university and community, establish a platform to turn community concerns and issues into action, and develop a strategic evidence-based approach and plan to combat systematic racism in our community. Outcomes, whoops. Sorry, my bad. Let me back up. There we go. Outcomes we're hoping for: a short 1 to 2 year and long-term 5 to 10 year action plan, identifying existing or planned community initiatives or proposing new initiatives to support impacted groups in their surrounding environments, maximizing the cultural assets, wealth they contribute to improve the whole community. I apologize as I'm having trouble getting my slides to advance. There we go. Within the compact, there are several subgroups: health and wellness, economic development, several more. But the group that you're talking to today is the accessible technology group. We have 4 co-leads, 2 from the university, 2 from the community. And we've had several community members working with us over the past few months. And this meeting, we're just hoping to gather more community input. Gathering community input is something that can't be forced, but is something that's absolutely necessary. So we're hoping for as much input as we can get tonight. And I also want to share one more thing before I turn the mic over. Here we go. Our group has been working for the past few months, hopefully you can see this, to prepare a vision statement. I'm going to read the abbreviated vision statement that we've come up with. Computers and connectivity are crucial to a range of online information and tools that individuals need, not just to survive, but also to thrive. Access to computing devices and internet connectivity are now essential for modern life and should be a basic human right for all people in the community. To that end, our group has kind of put forth the idea of establishing and staffing an IT hub in the community that would provide both on-site and community-based support and services through satellite sites. So ultimately, we're hoping that this would not only be a physical site where people could come to get assistance with computers, internet issues, but also staff that could travel throughout the community to go where the need is, to provide support, potentially bring about refurbished computers, hook up. There are multiple efforts in the community. How do we get those efforts to communicate, to work together? So that's just very briefly kind of what we're thinking this hub might accomplish. Also, we were hoping that the staff of the hub will serve as an IT resource to help plan and implement IT components of community initiatives advanced by other focus areas within the Community Campus Compact. At the same time, the staff of the IT hub can help identify youth in our community who show interest in further education, particularly youth of minority groups within the community. The staff will work to connect or establish pathway programs to work in college for all of these youth. The staff will collaborate with local service providers to develop internships and job opportunities. Finally, we envision the staff of the hub working with all local internet service providers to improve service for previously underserved individuals, and will work especially closely with i3 Broadband and the UC2B board to more fully utilize our existing all-fiber backbone in the community. That's what our group has come up with so far. But it's important to note that within our community over the last 10 or more years, there have been quite a few efforts to bridge the digital divide in the community, some of them more successful than others. But we certainly don't think we've ultimately solved the need within the community at this point. The UC2B project that is now almost 10 years old brought fiber into the community that hooked up key sites, schools, medical facilities, churches, government facilities, and brought fiber to a large percentage of the underserved area in both Champaign and Urbana. But I can tell you personally, one thing I've learned is just bringing fiber to a community does not guarantee connectivity for those where the fiber is. So that's something to keep in mind, something we need to explore. Just a few of the other projects that have gone on in the community. Janice Mitchell's center over in Urbana has done a great deal of work to bring kids to the internet and give them experience. Last summer, there was a project at Shadowwood Mobile Home Park to put mesh Wi-Fi over the community to hook up school kids there who, of course, over the last year needed remote connectivity for learning. There are several other projects in the community. The Hip Hop Express is a bus that travels around the community bringing Wi-Fi, essentially a Wi-Fi hotspot. The East Central Illinois Youth Center for Christ also has a couple Wi-Fi buses. They've been trying to do the same thing, bring Wi-Fi to where it is needed to connect kids, to connect people that need that connectivity. The libraries, both in Champaign and Urbana, are checking out hotspots so people can have connectivity at home through a hotspot just checked out. So those are some of the projects. We realize more projects are needed. And from my very own experience, I can say that the best of intentioned projects don't always reach the goals they were set out to reach. And we need to ask, and what we're hoping to get feedback on today, is what do we need to do to overcome the issue of the digital divide in our community? What issues do we need to address? What do we need to think of we haven't thought of? Our work is not done at all, and we certainly have nothing carved in stone as of yet. So we're looking to get as much community input as we can. And to that end, I'm going to pass the mic to our facilitator today. Chandra Somerville is here with us. Thank you, Chandra, for agreeing to do this today. Chandra is the Cultural and Linguistic Competence Coordinator at the Champaign County Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Board. And she has graciously agreed to be our facilitator today. So with that, thank you, Chandra, and I'm going to hand the mic to you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Mark. As Mark stated, I am Chandra Somerville, and I am the Cultural and Linguistic Competence Coordinator at the Champaign County Mental Health Board and Developmental Disabilities Boards. And what I do is I actually look at disparities on a systematic level. And technology, access to technology is one of those huge disparities and gaps that is in our community. And one of the largest things that COVID-19 actually brought out was how huge the gap was to quality, high-speed internet, access to quality technology so that young people could actually attend school in a virtual world where they were able to still learn, where they were able to still get access to those resources. And so bringing this conversation in community, in space, so that we can begin to actually learn what is it that the community really needs. Oftentimes, we as professionals get in rooms where we get access to what we need because we have great employers. We also have good jobs where we are able to go and buy certain technology. We also realize that that is not the case for everyone in Champaign County. And so we are ready to begin having some honest dialogue, honest conversation about true accessibility to technology. So I have some questions that will start the conversation. Sharon has put some things in the chat. So please make sure you pay attention to the chat. I will also be paying attention to the chat as well as I multitask. And if there's anything that I need to make sure that I get attention to, please make sure that you just let me know and stop me. Also, there are people in the room here at Champaign Public Library. We can say hello, you can wave. We want you to contribute too. We are balancing out the power tonight. This is not about university and community. We are an entire community. So I just wanted to make sure that I stated that even though there are a lot of us here that represent or are involved with the university or involved in city government and county government, I just want to invite us to just kind of balance out the power and let us talk about accessibility to technology in our community. So we're going to first start with the first question. What does accessible technology actually mean to you? You can put your answers in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself. Or if you are in the room, feel free to just speak up and speak out. There is a microphone that we can go around and pass around if you choose to speak. But we would invite you to contribute to the conversation. So in order for this to go well, we have to talk. So make sure that you do speak up. Make sure that you talk. I'm not going to say your camera has to be on, but I just want to invite you to contribute. And if you do have just something that you want to say in the chat, I will be glad to read that out loud. So let's get the conversation started. What does accessible technology mean to you? Tracy, your screen is lit up. Were you trying to unmute? Are you struggling with the sound? Is there anything on the Jamboard that we actually have?
Hello, Sandra.
Hi, Dawn.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. I have a community member here at Champaign Church of the Brethren that has a question.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Carissa. I am a mother of 5. I was wondering how would the kids be able to access the internet in the evenings, like after sports practices or games, or would it just be during the day?
At a site.
At home, while doing like homework and.
So I just want to make sure that I repeat what I heard you say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is that okay, Carissa?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what I heard Carissa say was, is it possible to get access to the internet after school after sporting events, not just during the day. And I'm kind of paraphrasing. Is that what you were asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so when you ask that, that is what accessible technology means to you, is having access not just at events, but
Yes,
actually
ma'am.
at your home. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
So we have that answer recorded. Absolutely, that is very important. Any other feedback regarding that concern that Carissa just stated? She has children where it's not just good for the internet to be during the school day, but actually having access to quality internet afterwards. That's important. Anything else?
Chandra,
Yes.
I have another community member.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Shanna, and I'm concerned if the internet will be at home due to not having transportation to get to other places where the internet is accessible.
So making sure that accessible technology is actually in the home and not necessarily traveling to a place, even though we have great places, great programs that have good technology. What I'm hearing you say is accessible technology at home is important, not just traveling because you don't have transportation.
Correct.
Okay. Those are all good things. Don, you have any other feedback about that question?
I'm trying to make one of my teenagers is here say something.
Okay.
Hold on one second.
I'm one of those people that are not uncomfortable with awkward silence, but I know some other people are, so I will not put my level of comfort of awkward silence on you all. I'll make sure that we fill the space. Dawn, do we
Yeah.
have a young person that wanted to speak?
We do.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jenna, and I would like to know, would I be able to pull an all-nighter on the internet? Like, would that still would that still work?
So what I'm hearing you say, I want to make sure that I hear, would you be able to pull an all-nighter?
Yeah, like would the Wi-Fi and stuff still work?
Okay, so here is a young person that is a teenager. Maybe they work better pulling an all-nighter, doing their work overnight. So accessible technology means that even at night, overnight, they should be able to pull an all-nighter, not just during the day. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And what is your name again?
Jenna.
Thank you, Jenna. That's an important perspective because we here, being a college campus, oftentimes I see people at the library very late at night. Does that mean they don't have access to the internet or access to technology? Or is it that they're going to a place just to study? I'm not sure. But what if a person wanted to pull an all-nighter and they just didn't have it at home? The way that internet access is set up now is that it is limited connectivity. Is that correct, Jenna?
She went back to her seat already, but yes.
Okay.
As the person at an internet site that has been called upon to be at the church till 11, 12 o'clock at night because somebody had a paper due or
Mhm.
just needed to cram for an exam and it was online and they didn't have it at home. I vote for that too.
Okay. So let's move to the next question, because we talked a lot about the next question, which is how do we get everyone in the community access to information technology? Just being able to have it in the home is important. Is there anything else when we think about information technology? And information technology is bigger than just the internet. Wouldn't you say that? So this is not just the internet. This is the devices. These are making sure that all those updates are able to get downloaded at a higher speed, making sure that you have access to all different types of ways to access technology. And we have people in the room. You can feel free to answer. Yes.
Still have very limited experience understanding how the devices work, understanding shortcuts, whether that be on Google platforms or any others. Maybe there's familiarity with using a phone for Gmail or texting, but I found in working with digital skills with people who've been on that other side of the digital divide, especially older people who have not had experience in school, is that even saying things like scroll down or tab or change your font. There's a whole language that's new to people. So I think we have to think very, very carefully about the best ways to train people to use these and to use the devices for things that are relevant to them.
Thank you for saying that. And what is your name again? Okay, thank you, Denise. And important because again, there is also a language barrier to technology that often isn't talked about. We just use just terms and we just assume that everyone does know. So the language barrier is definitely something that we should think about. And how do we learn language? By usually practicing, right? And so if we don't have the ability to practice using this language because we don't have the type of technology, how do we even practice?
Chandra,
Yes, Don?
I have another community member that has a question.
Okay.
Hi, my name
It's over here.
Hi. Am I speaking?
Right here. Mhm.
Hi, my name is Lola, and I just wondered, the computers that were given to the children can only access school, and just wanted to know, is there some type of grant that the kids can have access to having a home computer to access everything?
What is your name again?
It's Lola.
Lola. So Lola has stated another challenge as well, that making sure that you can actually not have blocked sites. Oftentimes when we give free things, and this is what she is speaking about, it's still a limit to what can actually be accessed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other feedback from the community that you have? And online.
just wanted to follow up on that question. So if I heard the question correctly, it was about possible grants for a computer. So the need that we're describing is out there to find a way to get machines for kids to connect with. If I'm hearing that correctly, I just want to make sure. I think that's definitely part of this, but I just want to make sure that I heard that correctly.
Yes, that was her question.
Thank you. Any other ways that we can get everyone in the community to access information technology? So when we talk about everyone getting access, I'm interested to know, we've also heard just some barriers to actually understanding the language of technology, a barrier of actually having the right kind of equipment, and then also actually having access to internet connectivity after school hours. What other barriers are present? And if you could think about ways we could eliminate those barriers, what would those be? Okay. Okay, that's okay.
Well, as indicated by the fact that the invitation to this meeting was also available in Spanish, which I think is great. I think there are many languages in this community that put people in a position of not understanding or not being reached effectively to hear about activities that are available and going on. And it strikes me that identifying leaders in various communities, peers who could help, take a role in teaching people or telling people in their communities about what's out there, and to make sure that there are translations in many languages would be very helpful.
What are some other barriers and how do we eliminate them? Thank you for that, Denise. We talked about different languages. Anything else?
Well, I'm not sure this is the right place, but if we could put something in there for community access points to support their supporting the community. I mean, when kids have a lot of papers due, the ink gets really expensive. And if we had a little more budget, if we had something a place where we could petition to get ink supplies and paper and those kind of things for those community centers that are already up and running. I mean, our computer lab is in a church and it gets used quite a bit. And sometimes we're short on paper and ink. So I would hope that if with either a grant or a storehouse could be established where centers who are performing a free service for the community could access additional supplies.
So, Dawn, what I'm hearing you say is printing is a barrier because people do still require that you don't just submit things digitally. You want it to be printed out and turned in that way. There are still some people printing.
Yes.
That is good feedback. Anything else? Any other barriers and how we can eliminate them? So we talked about multilingual, meaning multiple language. We also talked about the barriers of printing and actually providing resources to community hubs so that there can be printing available.
Well, training. I'm finding that when I'm working with young people, I have to know what kind of games they're playing to know where they are in the use of a computer. And sometimes it's just easier to get a game that they know how to do already, or can be learning how to do, but it has an application to another activity. I'll give one example that was personal. I used to work at FedEx, and they have this hand scanner that I was so slow on, I was embarrassed to go to work. But I was able to find a game online that gave the same audible tone and had the same hand movement with the mouse as the scanner. And I was able to really improve my scanning to where I was the best one on my shift. But it was because of a game. And games were originally thought of to teach keyboarding skills. So is there curriculum around that uses the skills that kids would use on those games to help them build, to learn coding or other activities that they can make a living with? Because everybody can't test games for a living. And that would be a point of access and would make it more accessible. Because if they have the computers and the internet and they don't know how to use it, it's not going to be helpful. They're going to need training.
Okay. Thank you. Sharon?
Yes, hi, thank you. This is Sharon Irish talking, and kind of building off of what Dawn said in terms of the multimodalities that we need to communicate. It seems like not only do we need translated instructions and information like Denise suggested, but also we need, for folks with low literacy, we need maybe TikTok videos or some sort of translated instructions that people can watch on YouTube in multiple languages. I mean, those are probably out there, but it would be nice to be able to corral some of those so that particularly, I think, parents who are at a loss of how to help their children could use some training in languages that they speak to then help their kids adapt to what's happening in the schools.
And again, with training, again, it still has to match learning styles. It has to also match it at in where it's easily understood. And so also that practice. So if they only have it at your space for 2 hours a day and do not have the ability to take it home and practice at home, oftentimes application does not stay. That's just how our brains work. I am a musician, and I remember those weeks I would go to piano lessons and didn't practice in between times. That would be a very bad piano lesson. So just again, training in community space is great. In addition, if there is resources available to implement, help them practice with that application, that is also helpful. Any other barriers before we move to our next topic? So one of the things I confess, I am a townie. I was born and raised in Champaign, left, went away to college and came back. There are so many resources in our community. We have access to so many things, and there are some things that have worked well. There have been some things that haven't worked well. What we would like to know are what past or current projects towards increasing accessibility for technology have worked well. So if you don't mind telling us in your experience, what has worked well in our community where you feel like, wow, I have access to what I need. I have the resources to get what I need. What has worked well? any community projects. We listed several of them. I do not know if anyone on the call has actually utilized those projects, but we are curious to know, have those projects worked well toward your access to technology?
Chandra.
Denise is coming to tell us something else about her.
Back, I don't want to
Okay.
hog the conversation here at all, but I work part-time at the YWCA, which historically has been on the campus of the University of Illinois on Wright Street and has been focused on activities for students. We have recently changed our focus to look at community-facing projects that support anti-racism and women's empowerment, and have received a grant from the National YWCA and Google to develop what's called the Strive program. We've had 2 classes, and what we do with that program is to purchase Chromebooks that we then provide for the students or the participants in the class for the duration. Once they complete that class, they're able to keep them. We've provided hotspots. We have put together manuals and a curriculum, which is continually changing because of having to be mindful of what people need rather than what we think they need. The things that have worked well are, number one, having those Chromebooks that people can take home and keep, which obviously poses a budgetary crunch on us at times. What's also worked is to work with existing groups who get together anyway. One instance was with the Well experience, where there's a group of women who support each other and have support through that group to use the materials to do things that they want to do anyway, whether that's write a resume, look for a job, communicate with family, etc. So having instructors who tie to a community group or have that be coming from the community group, I think is important. But it's also important, I think, to have troubleshooting support. So when people are not at a center or they're on by themselves trying to learn something and come into a question, there are some knowledgeable people who can respond to that. So those are my 2 big ones: having the equipment and having the backup support.
Denise, how do you get the word out about this?
We're new at this,
Okay.
and we have to be mindful again of capacity. But it's a very basic program. It's for people who are not familiar with using computers. And we've gone through programs where we know they are, through our own interactions with them in the community, that they are looking for programs that will help with workforce development, will help women support their children in school. So it's been identifying individual agencies, Well experience, Women in Need Recovery, different programs that are designed for single mothers or for new moms. So we're looking for partners, and we're looking for partners that will help us utilize the resources we have, but also help extend our resources so that we can get the most impact out of them.
Okay. Any other current projects?
Hi, I am here in Champaign from the Church of the Brethren. We've come here to use the internet and the computers, but it's not blocked, so you can access the internet from outside the building.
So Church of the Brethren has been a good resource, and the internet is not blocked.
Correct.
Okay.
We've never blocked it, and sometimes the kids sit on the lawn and play games, and sometimes they sit in the window wells and do their homework. And that's been, I don't know how many years. But if there was a network that could hook up, say there's a church about a half a block behind us. If that church had an unblocked network, then everything in between, all the houses in between could access the internet on their internet. So maybe a net of some kind that, you know, hooks different entities that are in the area together, and so their signals overlap. I mean, that sounds like something that could be quickly done as well. You know, I think that our issue about bringing accessibility to underserved populations is not going to be met by a single manner, in a single manner. We're going to have several different things to cover it all.
Don, so you and the person before you used a term about unblocking.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that we're communicating how you're defining unblock. Are you talking about making sure that it's open internet access? Are you talking about certain sites being blocked? Can you talk about what you mean when you talk about unblock?
Okay. Our Wi-Fi line has a password. It used to be written on the church door so anybody could just read it. And it's for public access. And the only reason we had a password at all was because the last time we upgraded our speed, AT&T made us take a password. Before that, we didn't even have a password. Just anybody driving down the street, pulling in the parking lot could use it. And that was what we wanted. It doesn't cost us any extra to share. And if other buildings had that same type of network, which is just their plain Wi-Fi network, but had a password that was available or was open, because I understand that sometimes people can just leave it open. They said we were a commercial account, we couldn't just leave it open. But I think that would be so helpful to a lot of people. I mean, sometimes I'll go out when I'm working late and there'll be somebody who didn't want to disturb me, sitting out. One lady bought a chair, was sitting out on the driveway, just using her laptop.
Thank you for saying that. I wanted to make sure that we were clear, because in the tech world, blocking and unblocking means very different things. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Well, because we block some sites, okay? We have filters where they cannot go on the children's computers. We have adult computers and children's computers. The kids cannot go on some sites. If they even ask, it defaults to Disney. So when they say, it keeps going to Disney, I can say, where are you trying to go, dear? Yeah, but yeah, language too. I have to work on my vocabulary.
No, it's not working on it. It's just honestly, that's why I asked, to make sure that we knew what you meant. You knew what you meant. You wanted it open. And so I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that we knew, you know, what blocking meant. Absolutely. So you are not wrong. Any other current projects towards increasing accessible technology that we have in the community that's worked well? So I'm going to talk about what has not worked well. And where are there barriers and obstacles? So we've talked about the school. Sharon, did you have something to say?
I was going to mention the numbers of funded projects when the grant happens and then the funding runs out. So what has not worked well in my experience is the wonderful energy that started a number of community technology centers, but there wasn't the funding to sustain them. And also someone else had talked about I think Denise just mentioned how important it is to have someone you can work with to figure out, a question, a technology question you don't understand. And if the technology centers don't have the staffing to provide that support, or their computers are so out of date that you're not really gaining. My experience is that this town has had a number of active community technology centers that are dormant now because of lack of support. So there's that.
Well, this is Dawn Blackman again. I was passing out flyers to notify people about this meeting, and 11 people said, oh, I'm not even gonna fool with them because we still waiting on our fiber optic hookup. The lines got right in front of my house, and then they never brought it in. So that was something that didn't work, and it's kind of soured people on doing things, trying to get in like it with organizations and things.
So when the fiber was laid, and
For
all that
UC2B.
for UC2B and all of that construction, and then still didn't get access to the fiber and weren't connected, that is disheartening. Any other obstacles? Funding, non-connectivity when connectivity was promised, anything else? Okay.
So I guess I think about the lack, well, not lack, but maybe the type of partnerships with the University of Illinois, right? Because it seems like some of the issues, especially around the paper and ink, could be something that a department could kind of put in their budget or just kind of commit to doing as part of their outreach. So I think that those are kind of some of the partnerships that we can think about, right? Some things that we try to change could be big, broad, bold, and audacious, but kind of ink and paper, right? Like to me, those things maybe just much easier. So it seems like maybe in the past, those kind of partnerships with departments may not have been there as much.
So the right kind of partnerships. And how do we know when people need paper and ink? How is that communicated? How is that even shared?
Yeah, but that's kind of what I was thinking, right? Like this, you would have a relationship, partnership relationship where you kind of know that. And yeah, so. But I don't know. So how do you see it kind of working out in the future? We ask departments to partner with community organizations, designate maybe certain faculty or even students, right? And then maybe there are quarterly meetings to ensure that what they need. And so, like I said, I mean, the paper and ink, that's one thing, but beyond that, even in terms of pathway programs, in terms of thinking about scholarships, internships, writing letters of recommendations for students, right? Like that whole relationship when you have it, just kind of resources flow. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about as well.
Thank you. And that also strengthens the bridge and doesn't even show like a divide. It really is bridging.
I would like to follow up on the mention of UC2B. And since we're talking about barriers or failures, so what I heard was a frustration that the fiber maybe went right down the street in front of you, but didn't get hooked up to your house. So I'm wondering what was the barrier that prevented it from getting hooked up? I mean, I can think off the top of my head of several reasons. Was it just not knowing where to go or who to talk to get it hooked up? Is it a cost? I mean, it's one thing to put fiber, but if then there's a cost to hook it up, that can be prohibitive as well. So I'm wondering if Dawn, anyone from your group could speak to that. What were the barriers that you see as far as getting that hooked up?
The barrier for that particular project was that they were supposed to bring the connection into the dwellings.
Don, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I said that the barrier with that particular project was that the project was supposed to bring the fiber optics into the units, into the dwellings. I had several appointments made to come to the church so they could get inside and drill the wall and bring it in. And they weren't able to get to all the places within the time that the span of the grant or the project. And so whatever they got done. And when the time was up, the rest of us didn't get it done. Now, and then if you want to do it, I imagine we could still get it done now, late, but we'd have to pay for it extra. There was, people are like, we put up with all of the street and the sidewalk and all the inconvenience of it, and then didn't really get anything but inconvenienced. And if we call now, and if you call around, people are offering internet access for more than they can afford. They didn't need to even lay fiber after to get internet access if they could afford the amount that is being asked now, because they could have called AT&T or somebody.
Did that clarify for you? Okay. Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Any other obstacles or barriers? So in our vision statement, and this is abbreviated, there is a statement in here that says, interconnectivity is now essential for modern life and should be a basic human right for all people in our community. Why is accessible technology needed? Why is having accessible technology, why is it needed in our community?
So Dawn has been a great teacher for me, and I wondered if she would just talk a little bit about the challenges of folks who have very limited data plans, for example, attending a meeting like this.
So attending a meeting about accessibility to technology, and then you don't have the technology to actually come to the meeting. How does that work? You said, what did you say? It doesn't work. Or it's a limited perspective. Because it's a limited perspective from the perspective of people who come in prepared for meetings about technology accessibility. It's a very different perspective.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, Don, you can.
Well, you can't get to a meeting on the internet to learn how to get on the internet if you don't know how to get on the internet and you haven't got access to the internet. So we passed out flyers and talked to people on the street and handed people flyers. And then I did this instead of being at the library or one of the other locations, I did this location where people could just walk in. And then today I walked up and down the street passing out more flyers. It takes more effort, but what else do? You can't even announce a meeting to get on the internet, to get an internet access to people who don't have internet access on the internet. It just doesn't work.
Thank you.
And if I had a month running up, I'm going to have the announcement made in every church I can get to. They'll be announcing that there's a meeting on June 30th and how to get on board. And I'm going to be talking to other pastors about hosting meetings like this one, where people can just walk in, where they don't have to get on the bus to go to the library, to access a meeting that's going to be over with after dark, and then they got to get home. They can just walk right across the street. So that's one way of doing it, but putting a notice on Facebook is not going to work for people who don't have technology.
And also, Don, your efforts to meet at the church and share the Wi-Fi that the church has means that people who have phones that only have 200 minutes a month, well, not that they
Right.
would use them to come to this meeting anyway, but in theory, they wouldn't be using the data because you're sharing your resources with them. So I just want to acknowledge and thank you for your labor because it's way significant.
Well, I'll say thanks, but I mean, it's just like what you have to do. Why are we here if we're not here to help people?
Yeah, and I guess I want to echo it too, as you talked about students, because some students do kind of study late at night, or as you say, if they're playing sports and they need to come home and study, like it's just when we talk about assets in the community, right? Your program is an asset where young people know that they can come there and there's someone with a big heart, right? Who will stay late and kind of sacrifice some of their own personal time and personal life to do that. So just echo Sharon's thank you.
I have
And
a blue note
Don,
there in my office.
And Don, the work that you do, are you equipping younger people to take your place?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And so I sit and think about, there are a lot of people in our community, being a townie, I have seen who were like major pillars and no one has come in and filled that role. And honestly, I don't know what was done to truly pass the mantle, not to fit in your shoes, but what they do is just learn what you did and continue to build their shoes.
Oh,
And
I called them up at a meeting last week. I'm passing on the baton. Let me see some hands.
And I'll just say the Nova project, right, which is a computer science program for 5th through 12th graders. Hopefully we'll get to work with Ms. Blackman this summer and looking forward to kind of also transferring some resources and supporting that program and help it to be sustainable. And also with the young people, yeah, just really looking forward to working together. And as you said, this bridge or relationship. Mhm.
Any other thoughts about why accessible technology is needed? So what I'm curious to know is what happens when when technology isn't accessible? What happens? What does that mean for our community? It further divides. It further creates even more disparities, and even more so, health is getting ready to be impacted. COVID has taught us ways that, like, wow, we don't have to go to the doctor. They can actually call us and we just send them pictures of what's actually happening. We never have to go to the doctor. Imagine a person who has not that access anymore, and then no doctors want to even work in clinics like they once did because they're able to see more patients online or see different types of things. So just thinking about it, what else would happen? What other things would it impact if we didn't have access to technology? Mm-hmm.
Well, something that I've been looking at is that it's not this technology, but solar technology. As people, more and more people get solar energy, panels on the top of the roof of their houses, there's going to be fewer and fewer people paying Ameren, and Ameren's going to be doing fewer and fewer repairs on their lines, and it'll be underserved populations in other areas who are left with a decaying energy system. So that's technology there too.
Absolutely. Any other? What if we didn't have it? Do you mind repeating what you said, Denise, now that you have the microphone?
Thank you. I was just saying job applications, searching for jobs. I mean, I think we all experience that many things that we need to do in day-to-day life are online. And it's an inconvenience for many people, but if you don't have access, then you immediately are put at a disadvantage. I think about myself wanting to have results of lab work or something from the hospital, and they say check online. Well, number one, can I check online? And thanks to my privilege, I can. But secondly, do I know what those words mean? Increasingly not having access to a real human being to talk to, I think is something that we've really learned about through the pandemic. Even, it's exaggerated or underscored that.
Thank you, Denise. Any other comments?
Job opportunities. Denise mentioned job opportunities, but literally what you're saying is opportunities are taken away if you don't have access. All kinds of opportunities.
Absolutely. Opportunities are missed. And you just don't even have access to it and don't even know about the opportunities.
This
Sharon.
is Sharon talking again. The talent that we lose for folks who cannot get online to either educate themselves or share their own cultural wealth is just mind-boggling to contemplate. So it's not only that people who can't have access are losing out. We are all losing out for not being able to have those people contributing to our cultures.
Oh yeah, and I just wanted to say that I regularly volunteered at the homeless shelter while it was still operating, and just learning about how many resources there are online, like how many benefits people can apply to, and them just not just knowing about it, or even having the computer to access it at the homeless shelter was a really a big detriment. And so having more access would definitely allow people just to improve their lives in general, but not just education, but also things like food insecurity and all these other social inequities.
Because people want to be environmental friendly, a lot of resource guides are not actually printed like they once were. So it's kind of like a give and take, or take and take. So we have gone through most of our questions. I am a firm believer that if there is not any other dialogue, I want to make sure that we give space for open dialogue. If there anything that we missed, please feel free to share at this time. If there was like a really major point about accessibility that you need to, we would like to offer you the space to do that at this time. We may have missed it. So please feel free to share at this time.
I want to jump in again because we run a food pantry here at the church, and the list of food pantries in Champaign is available online. But if you don't have access, you can't even get the list. I know that the food bank, sometimes they'll tell people, say, I don't have access, because they come here. The young lady that answers the phone will say, well, Church of the Brethren, go see Dawn at Church of the Brethren, because they know I'm here most of the time, and I have days of the week for our food pantry, but if somebody's here and hungry, I feed them anyway. But to have such a vital resource for hungry people only available in one place, it's kind of sad. I mean, it's if you don't have access, you can be, it's really to your detriment in a town as technology flush as Champaign is.
Thank you for sharing that. Were you able to capture that message? I'm just making sure that we have it for our notes. Okay. Are there any other things that we missed? So we heard about food. Anything else, or access to food banks?
I'm going to add one more thing as I approach old age myself, or am in old age category, I suppose. I'm very concerned about seniors, the elderly, and their ability to not only gain access to computers, but to get over their fear and stigma about using them, and their thought that perhaps to many people, not to everyone, of course, that it's just something that they can't learn, especially for people who may be homebound and lonely.
So definitely the senior population is a population. I tell people, I said, as long as you keep having birthdays, it's going to keep happening. Just gonna keep having birthdays. You have anything?
Since I think we're getting close to wrapping up, but I just wanted to kind of review what I heard and just make sure that it's right, that in one sense, there's a need for training, there's a need for available computers, There can be a need for supplies, even ink. I mean, ink is expensive. There can be a need for establishing curriculum. And all of these things could potentially fit into what this group is proposing. The IT center for the community could assist in all of these. But I think I also heard, though, that potentially there's a greater need to get access for everybody where they live, where they are. And I think that may be beyond the scope of this group, but I just wanted to say that this group, we've been told that there's a potential budget, no guarantee here, but a potential budget of $500,000 for a year and potentially 3 years of that. So that's a lot that could be accomplished. But I appreciate everybody that's been on the call today. And I just wanted to mention that this is a good time to really come out and be vocal about the need for access to the internet for everybody where they live. Right now, our community is about to be blessed with some COVID emergency funds from the federal government, both cities, Urbana and Champaign, and the county. And one of the things they could possibly do with that funding is broadband related. So all our communities are going to be exploring what they can do with this funding, but I just think it's critical that we hear from the community about this need. So I'm hoping we'll get more folks at the June 30th meeting, and I'll try to let people know the best I can of other opportunities. So we're kind of talking about two things, and I guess I wear two hats because I'm sitting on this community, this group, but I also work for the city. So there will be opportunities to explore how we get internet to everybody, which I hope the voices that we've heard tonight will come out again, because it's critical that people really let the community know about the need that is out there. So thank you.
And those that may be tuning in or watching this even later, there is a June 30th meeting, and we encourage you, you can even host watch parties. If you have access to internet and you know people who do not, bring it to them, bring the opportunity to them so that they can, their voices can be heard. Don, thank you for choosing to do that. You created a space. It was not better than or more than, it was what was needed in this community conversation. So thank you for just being a pillar in the community that created access for people who did not have access to attend our community event. I see your thumbs up, Tracy. Thank you. Any other last minute thoughts? What we're doing is we're reviewing the Jamboard. If you got access to the Jamboard, we're just kind of reviewing what was on there. Okay.
I added a lot of the comments that I was hearing to the Jamboard, but one that showed up that I didn't add was provide free internet access, which is a good idea.
So this is the Jamboard. This is the community Jamboard where we can actually see the thoughts. So if we were in person, these are like Post-its that would be put on Post-it paper or different things. So this is a way to contribute. So thank you all for your thoughts. So with this community Jamboard, will it be open for people to contribute in between our next event. This may be an opportunity to garner feedback in other community spaces that we hadn't thought about. So this may be an opportunity to share it in other spaces between now and the next meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we should leave it open. Do others think so? Okay, yeah, so we'll leave it open.
So we're going to leave the Jamboard open. And so if you have access or the ability to share it, or even if you hear something and can add it that you would not have heard from someone else, this is a great time where you can talk to grocery store clerks, all different types of people that we interact with. So we just invite you to contribute to this open space, and that'll be the follow-up. I know we are streaming live through Urbana Public Television. I watch Access Television like sometimes when I can't sleep and get great information. So you may be watching this at 2 a.m. So just understand that feedback is actually going to be garnered through the Community Jamboard, and keep filling it. Keep filling it.
So I have two questions related to that. One is the Jamboard able to be backed up so we can save this somehow? Okay, and the second question, more for Tracy perhaps, is if when we are streaming the recording or when we're playing the recording, will the chat show up? Because the link to the Jamboard is in the chat, but maybe I should put it in the Jamboard itself.
So if you put it in the Jamboard, then maybe it can be on there, or you can send the text to them and it can be captioned.
Okay, I'm confusing myself now, so I'll just stop.
Okay.
We have lots of traffic at our garden, Randolph Street Community Garden. So, and I have a big whiteboard and I got a box of sticky notes. So I'm going to create a physical Jamboard and then collect the notes every day when I go, and then we could add them to this one maybe?
Yep, that would be perfect.
I just need to know what heading I should put on it. Leave us a note about your internet access concerns.
Yes, that would be helpful. And then we can just create a different page, another page that would just continue to garner community input.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Again, I'm Chandra Somerville. I was honored to be here and serve as a part of these conversations. These can be challenging and kind of stretch you. And so we just invite you to just get uncomfortable and remember that digital access is a human right to every single person in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.